Oh, hey guys, doing James here. Well, we're going to do another story. People claim to seen Whitney Houston's ghost, and here's a couple content creators giving their story. But I'm going to show you where Whitney Houston really is after this.
You have a mortgage now. You actually read ingredient labels.
Room 434 at the Beverly Hilton has remained unoccupied for 12 years, not due to management policy, but because staff refuse to enter after dark. Security footage from February 2024 captured something impossible. A translucent figure singing in the fourth floor corridor at 3:47 a.m., the exact time Whitney Houston was discovered dead in 2012. What you're about to witness is documented by multiple hotel employees, corroborated by audio recordings, and substantiated by thermal imaging evidence. But to understand what happened here, we must return to that devastating February morning. The Beverly Hilton, erected in 1955 at 9876 Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills, California, stands as an architectural monument to Hollywood's golden age. Designed by Welton Beckett, the same architect behind the Capitol Records building, this 14-story hotel became synonymous with celebrity glamour, hosting the Golden Globe Awards annually since 1961.
Simple. I only pay $10 a month for my internet connection. Fast, unlimited, anywhere. Have you heard about Ryoko Pro?
Since 1961. The hotel's international ballroom witnessed countless industry celebrations, but its fourth floor held private sanctuaries where stars retreated from public scrutiny. Whitney Elizabeth Houston first stayed at the Beverly Hilton in 1986, fresh from her breakthrough performance at the Grammy Awards. Born August 9th, 1963, in Newark, New Jersey, Houston possessed what music critics called the voice of a generation. By the early 1990s, she had achieved unprecedented success. 7 consecutive #1 singles, over 200 million records sold worldwide, and a cultural influence that transcended music. The Beverly Hilton became her Los Angeles refuge, a place where the most celebrated female vocalist of all time could exist away from cameras and expectations. According to hotel records obtained through historical documentation, Houston stayed at the property over 40 times between 1986 and 2012. Former concierge director Michael Stevens recalled in a 2015 interview, Whitney always requested the fourth floor, specifically rooms with bathtubs. She'd say the acoustics helped her practice without disturbing guests. This detail would become tragically significant. February 11th, 2012, marked the eve of the 54th Grammy Awards. Houston checked into room 434 on February 9th, preparing to attend music mogul Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy Gala being held in the hotel's International Ballroom that same evening. Contemporary accounts reveal she appeared in good spirits, rehearsing in her room and socializing with friends. Hotel staff reported hearing her singing Thursday evening, her unmistakable voice carrying through the hallway. The following afternoon, at approximately 3:35 p.m., Houston's personal assistant discovered her submerged in the bathtub of room 434. Los Angeles County Coroner's Office documentation shows death occurred between 3:30 and 3:55 p.m. on February 11th, 2012. The official cause: accidental drowning with heart disease and cocaine use as contributing factors. She was 48 years old. The Beverly Hilton transformed overnight into a spontaneous memorial. Thousands of mourners gathered outside, leaving flowers, candles, and handwritten notes. The hotel's management faced an unprecedented situation: how to respectfully handle a room where one of music's greatest voices had fallen silent. Room 434 underwent complete renovation in March 2012, with new carpeting, fixtures, and bathtub installation. The room number itself was changed to 434B, in an attempt to distance the space from its tragic history.
Have you ever heard an old song that you really want to sample?
There's a lot of, YouTube with the commercials. Jesus, man. Oh, man. All right. I'm going to give you a little bit of this. Let me see. That was Whitney Houston, right? Okay. This is what they said. Okie dokie. Hold on. This is what they said, right? About Whitney Houston. Just had the video. Yeah. But that, and there's some more video claiming, but I'm gonna show you again this video. What these people may be seeing may not be who Whitney Houston is. Because in the previous video mentioned by Michael Jackson, and they claimed that the guy claimed that he's speaking to him from a spirit box, and Michael is not there at the residence, and what's there is a fallen spirit, a deceiving spirit. And I read in the passage that these spirits go to and from the earth, so they mimic anybody from famous to rich or anything. And this is a deceiving spirits that's in the last days. So if they do, like people gonna claim that, like the Bible even said that they're gonna say Jesus was in the woods, Jesus was coming from over there, and then the Bible said that don't go to the wilderness, don't go to these different places, and He will let you know. Well, during that time when it was happening, the same spirit would be doing that with famous. There are spirits that do that with famous people that claim, and now with technology, they can claim that they saw somebody. It's a wicked spirit, that because people get so obsessed with celebrities, anything, so they'll start believing that they're communicating with them, and what they're communicating with something is not of this world. And it's dangerous. People don't realize how dangerous a game they're playing. You're playing with messing with something that once it's attached to you, that's it. It may not let you go, or it may torment you. And there's been stories online. So people shouldn't really mess with things, and even the Bible even said that. And that's why the Father in heaven put that in the Bible, because He see what these things can do, because He's in the eternal realm, and by some people, by God, by His grace, some people been spared, and people will always want to try something different, but that's something like that you don't want to try. To mess with something that is beyond your understanding, your physical, there's nothing, you can't go against something that's been in the ancient world for thousands of years since before mankind. And that's what people don't understand, that, but make this video just be a teachable lesson, because some people get caught up and they go out and do some things like this. And you don't want to be one of the people that get caught up in something like this, because whatever you get, it may attract. And we in the last days, so whatever you dabble with, whether it's a Ouija board or whether it's something like that, trying to contact the spirit, it may not be that spirit. And that spirit can be sent assignment, cause chaos and stuff around you. And this stuff is very, very real. For what I'm telling you, people are putting their souls and literally their sanity in danger. But they claim that they seen the ghost of Whitney Houston. They're not seeing the ghost. I mean, they seen the spirit. She's not there.
Running hurts. Just do Tai Chi. It heals.
At first, there was peace. Themselves were the agents of unimaginable suffering. These demonic entities were not merely faceless spirits. They embodied the very sins that had brought these souls to this place. Each demon had a specific form, reflecting the inner struggles and regrets of the souls they tormented. For example, a demon tormenting those with pride took on a grotesque, towering shape, constantly belittling and reminding them of their inflated ego. Another demon, bound to those who had suffered from greed, continuously replayed the moments when they valued wealth over people, turning these scenes into weapons of emotional anguish. These demons didn't just inflict physical pain, they specialized in psychological and emotional torment, turning every regret, missed opportunity, and hidden guilt into a sharp-edged tool. The regret of not seeking forgiveness or ignoring their conscience in life became an endless cycle that kept replaying, with the demons mocking each moment. There was a demon who took on the guise of the voices that led souls astray during their lives, whispering the same tempting words that had once seemed so appealing, but now sounded like an eternal condemnation. They drew out every memory of moments when the person could have chosen differently, amplifying the feelings of if only and what could have been. While moving through this dreadful place, I encountered the souls of 5 famous artists. Each one was trapped in a cycle of regret and suffering that reflected their lives on Earth. I'll never forget their faces, distorted with pain. They begged for a second chance, but here there were no second chances, only eternal consequences. Elvis Presley. I found Elvis amidst burning shadows that endlessly mocked him. He cried out about how he had chased fame and fortune, but missed the true meaning of life. Demons around him taunted him with his old songs, twisting the lyrics to reflect his despair. He kept screaming, "I should have listened. I should have turned to God." But those screams went unanswered. Kurt Cobain. Kurt was isolated, trapped in a dark corner where his own thoughts haunted him. His regret was palpable, like a weight pressing down on his soul. He spoke of how he had allowed despair to consume him, ending his own life. Demons echoed the words of his songs, but they twisted them into chants of hopelessness. He seemed caught in a cycle of endless self-blame. Amy Winehouse. Amy's voice, once filled with soulful melodies, now only echoed with pain. Her struggles with addiction in life had become her torment here. She was surrounded by shadows, replaying scenes of her past, constantly reminding her of what could have been. Demons jeered at her, twisting the lyrics of her songs into a cruel reminder of her lost opportunities. Tupac Shakur. Tupac was trapped in a place where his past life of violence seemed to play out around him. He kept repeating that he had wanted to make a difference, that he had wanted to turn things around. But here, his words became chains, binding him to endless cycles of regret. Demons surrounded him, whispering every word of anger and vengeance he had ever spoken, turning them into a mockery of his intentions. Whitney Houston. Whitney, who had once inspired millions with her powerful voice, was now tormented by memories of her struggles with substance abuse. She sang, but her songs were filled with sorrow, and the demons turned them into twisted versions of her gospel hymns. She kept crying, "I want to go back. I want to find the peace I sang about." But here her cries went unanswered, echoing into the empty darkness. After witnessing this horror, I was suddenly pulled back toward heaven's light. A voice, calm and full of authority, said, "Tell them what you have seen. Warn them. Time is short." It was then that I realized my experience wasn't just for me. It was for you. For everyone still on Earth. I felt the urgency to share what I saw, to let the world know that heaven and hell are real, and the choices we make have eternal consequences. These demons manipulate desires and fears of each soul. Those who had craved fame were now haunted by the emptiness of their applause. They could hear the echo of cheers, only for it to turn into mocking laughter as demons twisted their words, reminding them that all their accomplishments now meant nothing. Souls who had sought power felt their control slipping away endlessly, chased by their own ambitions, turned to ash. Demons twisted these desires into nightmares, turning every wish into a source of anguish. The demons also inflicted profound isolation. Souls who had lived for the attention of others were placed in utter loneliness. They cried out, reaching for comfort that never came, and the demons mocked their desperation, turning every plea for help into a hollow echo. Each soul felt completely alone, surrounded by others, but unable to connect, trapped in their own torment, with the demons amplifying their sense of despair and worthlessness. Unlike the temporary sufferings of earth, this torment had no end. The demons took a perverse joy in reminding the souls that their suffering would never cease, that their cries would never be answered. It was a place where time seemed to stretch forever, with no hope of relief. Even the smallest gestures of kindness or comfort that one might expect on earth were utterly absent, replaced by a continuous cycle of pain. It was clear that hell was designed not just to punish, but to break the spirit entirely, and the demons were the enforcers of this grim reality. The deeper I went, the more I realized that these demons served as reminders that hell is a place where every unrepented action, every unhealed wound, and every...
If you feel like your brain craves pleasure...
And you know what the sad part about it is? How many people that gave up and sold their soul. So when they sell to the devil and do not repent, while they in the land of the living, they're going to be down there with the other people. And that's the sad part about it. When they call themselves their own God or their own self-made, this is where they're heading. And the ones who conspire with them, the ones who were over them, this is where they're heading. The handlers, those who did secret things with them. And guess who was behind that gave them to manifest their so-called demon blessings? These dark entities that's around them. And the people that entertain dark entities, they're going to be tormented with it.
Have you ever wondered what happens to celebrities after they die? So many of them seem to have it all. Fame, fortune, admiration. But did they really? What if I told you that behind the lights, the applause, and the endless pursuit of pleasure, many of them walked a path that led straight to destruction, and worse? What if I told you that some of them are now suffering in ways you can't even imagine? This is not just a story, it's a warning, a terrifying, eye-opening testimony of what happens when you chase the world and leave God behind. The truth is, hell is real, and many who once stood in the spotlight now find themselves in eternal torment. But why? What went so wrong? And most importantly, could this happen to you? Today you will hear the shocking account of a woman who was given a second chance. She lived for the world, indulged in sin, and ignored every warning, until she found herself on the brink of eternal damnation. She saw celebrities suffering, souls crying out, and the horrifying reality of hell. But before it was too late, God pulled her back, just long enough for her to tell the world what she saw. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear could change your eternity. And before we continue, let me ask you something. Are you subscribed to this channel? Many people watch but forget to subscribe, and by doing so, you might be missing life-changing content like this. So, take a second now, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because today we're revealing the terrifying truth about fame without God. From an early age, she was introduced to the path of faith. Born into a conservative Christian family, her parents taught her biblical values, the importance of prayer and obedience to God. Every Sunday, the entire family went to church, and the pastor's teachings echoed in her mind as unquestionable truths. But like many young people, she began to feel curious about the world beyond the church her parents spoke of holiness, her friends spoke of freedom. While the Bible warned about the dangers of sin, social media displayed a life of glamour, money, and pleasure. And so, the first internal conflict began. What was so wrong about wanting to experience the world? After all, didn't God want her to be happy? The first signs of unrest appeared during her teenage years, but it was at 20 that the rebellion truly took hold. She was searching for a job and a husband, and she did what she had always been taught. She prayed. She prayed in the morning, at night, she fasted, she pleaded, she waited, but nothing happened. God's silence gnawed at her soul. Friends who had never cared about prayer were getting jobs, thriving, dating, getting married, while she remained in the same place, waiting for an answer that never came. And then the thought crept into her heart like poison. If God really cares, why isn't he listening? That's when the decision came. A quiet yet profound choice. If God didn't care, why should she? And so she started walking a new path. At first, it was small compromises, going to a party here, listening to music she once considered worldly there. But sin never comes all at once. It sneaks in, step by step, until, before you realize it, there's no way back. Soon, she was immersed in a completely different lifestyle. Drinking, drugs, and even prostitution became part of her routine. She knew she was wrong. She knew her parents cried for her. She knew she was breaking God's heart. But now, rebellion was her way of making a statement. Like a child seeking attention, she drowned herself in sin, as if to say, "Look, God, if you don't care about me, then I don't care about you either." What's most striking is that even in the darkness, God was still speaking. Tiny moments of conscience weighed on her heart. The disappointed look in her mother's eyes when she arrived home late. A Bible verse that would suddenly echo in her mind like a distant whisper. But she silenced all those voices with more alcohol, more drugs, more indulgence. After all, if God really wanted her back, why wouldn't he just change her life? If he wanted her to return, why didn't he give her what she was asking for? With those thoughts, she carried on, unaware that she was inching closer to rock bottom. The truth, one that many fail to see in time, is that God never abandons us. He simply allows us to make our own choices. But every choice has a consequence, and the price of turning away from faith is always higher than we are willing to pay. For her, that price was about to be collected in a brutal way. One night, as she wandered through the neon-lit streets, lost in the lifestyle she had chosen, she encountered an old man. He was different. His presence carried a weight, a kind of quiet authority that made her uneasy. With gentle yet firm eyes, he looked at her and said, "You were being tested, but you failed." His voice wasn't condemning, but it carried a depth that sent a shiver down her spine. For a brief moment, something inside her stirred. Fear, regret, or perhaps recognition that she was on the wrong path. But instead of listening, she shook it off. What did he know? She had already gone too far. Turning her back on his words, she laughed bitterly and continued down her path, believing she was in control of her own destiny. That same night, she decided to go to a nightclub. The music was deafening, the air thick with smoke and sweat. She was drawn to the illusion of happiness, the flashing lights, and the feeling of being desired. There she met two men, both charismatic, both eager for her attention. One of them, charming and confident, offered to take her home after the party. She agreed, thinking little of it. But she didn't realize that the other man, consumed by jealousy, had been watching closely. As they left the club, he gathered 5 other men, their faces twisted with envy and resentment. What started as a casual night out turned into a nightmare. The two were ambushed in the streets, assaulted with merciless brutality. Fists and feet rained down on them, blood staining the pavement. She could barely register the pain. Everything became a blur of violence and fear. By the time help arrived, she was barely conscious, her body broken, her spirit shattered. The next thing she knew, she was in a hospital bed, surrounded by the sterile smell of disinfectant and the beeping of medical monitors. Her parents stood by her side, their eyes filled with sorrow and disappointment, cut deeper than any physical wound. They didn't have to say much, just a simple question that pierced her soul. Is this really the life you wanted? For the first time in years, she had no answer. The weight of her choices pressed down on her like a stone. Tears welled in her eyes, and in that moment, she realized how far she had fallen. That night, as she lay in the hospital bed, the same words from the old man echoed in her mind. You were being tested, but you failed. Was this what failure looked like? Was this the end of the road? Something inside her cracked open, a sliver of light piercing through the darkness she had wrapped herself in. And so, for the first time in years, she whispered a prayer, not out of habit, not out of obligation, but out of sheer desperation. In the days that followed, she made a choice she never thought she would. She returned to church. The music, the prayers, the presence of God she had once abandoned. It all felt different now. There was no immediate miracle, no sudden fix, but there was something else. Peace. A kind of peace she hadn't felt in years. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally heading in the right direction. At first, her return to faith felt like a fresh start. She immersed herself in prayer, sought guidance from the church, and even felt a renewed sense of purpose. And in what seemed like divine timing, she landed a job at a small company, a sign, she believed, that God was restoring what she had lost. Her parents rejoiced, her pastor encouraged her, and for a while she truly believed she had left her past behind. But as time went on, the fire inside her began to dim. The job brought financial stability, and with it a growing attachment to material things. She started working extra hours, skipping church services, rationalizing that God understands I have responsibilities now. Her prayers became shorter, less intentional, until one day they stopped altogether. The allure of money, success, and social status quietly replaced her devotion, just as before. And as the pattern repeated itself, she slowly drifted away from God once again. With this new life came old temptations. The same crowd she had walked away from welcomed her back without hesitation. The late nights returned, along with the drinks, the fleeting pleasures, the reckless choices. She spent her money as quickly as she earned it, filling the void with indulgence, ignoring...
Introducing the business card that gives back all you put
Kind
in.
of long.
The new Chase
Sorry
Sapphire
about that.
Reserve for Business.
We have OB.
3 miles inland. The Red Cross found me 2 days later, half dead and completely alone. That hurricane didn't just take my family, it took my faith. How could a loving God allow such destruction? How could Jesus, who supposedly walked on water, let the waters drown innocent people? I was raised by my grandmother after that, a devout Catholic woman who prayed the rosary every night and tried to rebuild my broken faith. But every time she spoke about God's love, I remembered my mother's screams as the water pulled her under. Every time she mentioned Jesus' mercy, I saw my father's desperate hands reaching for me before the current took him away. By the time I was 20, I'd left New Orleans for Los Angeles, chasing the dream of music. I formed a band called Rebel Angels, and for a while, we tasted fame. Our songs played on radio stations, concerts sold out, thousands of people sang my words. I thought I'd found my paradise, but behind the spotlights was emptiness. My lyrics mocked God, laughed at faith, rebelled against everything my grandmother had tried to teach me. Yet in my guitar case, I still carried that old rosary she'd pressed into my hands when I left. I never used it, but I couldn't throw it away either. When the fame faded around my 40s, I kept chasing it. I moved from city to city, playing smaller and smaller venues. By 2024, I was a has-been traveling the country in a beat-up van, playing dive bars and truck stops for gas money, and in the slim hope that some record executive might wander in and discover me again. People called me eccentric, a washout with too much eyeliner and too many stories about the old days. Inside, I was lost. I believed in nothing and everything. Crystals, tarot cards, cosmic energy, anything except the God who had let my parents die. I told people I believed in the universe, but at night I feared the silence and the possibility that there was nothing after death. November 7th, 2024, I was driving to Nashville in my van, heading to play a gig at Murphy's Pub, a tiny place that paid barely enough to cover gas. The owner had promised that a local radio DJ might show up, another false hope I chased like a moth to flame. About 50 miles outside the city, a massive thunderstorm erupted. Lightning split the sky like cracks in heaven's dome. I pulled over at a truck stop to wait it out, but the storm was mesmerizing. I grabbed my phone to record the lightning. Maybe I could use the footage for social media. Anything to stay relevant. That's when it happened. A bolt of lightning struck the metal roof of the truck stop, and the surge traveled through the ground. I was standing in a puddle, phone raised high, when the electricity hit me. My body convulsed, my heart stopped, and I collapsed onto the wet asphalt. Witnesses later said they saw a blue fire dancing around my body for nearly 30 seconds before the paramedics arrived. That was the moment I died. When my consciousness returned, I wasn't lying on that parking lot. I was suspended in a void so thick I could feel it pressing against my skin like wet concrete. The first thing I noticed was the silence, not ordinary quiet, but a suffocating emptiness that roared louder than any storm. Then came the sounds, screams. They started as distant whispers and swelled into a chorus of agony that seemed to come from everywhere at once. My heart should have been racing, but I wasn't sure I had a heartbeat anymore. I realized I was falling, not through air, but through something heavier, like sinking into molten tar. The darkness wasn't just around me, it was inside me, filling every thought with dread and despair. The deeper I fell, the louder the cries became, and I could smell sulfur like a million matches burning simultaneously. Finally, I hit ground. It wasn't solid earth, but ash, hot, crumbling, and alive with glowing embers. Every step I took sank me deeper, as if the very soil wanted to devour me. I looked around frantically, but there was no horizon, only endless fire pits and jagged cliffs glowing red from rivers of molten lava. The sky, if it could be called sky, was nothing but a canopy of black smoke swirling with shapes that definitely weren't human. That's when I saw them. Shadows moving with purpose, hunched and twisted figures dragging chains longer than their bodies. Some crawled on all fours, their flesh peeling off like melting wax. Others wailed as creatures with skull faces clawed at them, whispering words I couldn't understand but felt in my bones. You belong here with us. The air itself burned my lungs with every breath. I stumbled forward and discovered pits filled with souls. Men and women from every walk of life, rich and poor, young and old. What horrified me most was the perfect justice of it all. The punishments weren't random tortures. They were precisely tailored to each person's sins. The greedy choked eternally on molten gold that poured down their throats without end. Liars had their tongues stretched until they tore, only to regenerate and be torn again. The proud were forced to stare into mirrors that melted their faces while they begged to look away. Murderers were stabbed continuously by their own victims, experiencing every death they'd caused. Those who had spread hate found their bodies consumed by the very hatred they'd harbored, burning from the inside out while their victims watched. I understood instinctively that hell wasn't chaos. It was order. A terrible, perfect justice was at work here, giving everyone exactly what they'd chosen in life. I felt the ground tremble beneath me and realized something was moving under the ash. A hand, black, charred, and clawed, shot up and grabbed my ankle with supernatural strength. I shrieked as it tried to drag me down into the burning soil. I kicked free, but demonic laughter echoed through the void, and I realized there was no safety anywhere in this place. I tried to run, but the terrain shifted like it was alive, responding to my fear. Every step led me closer to the pits of torment. The worst part wasn't the fire or the demons. It was the hopelessness. An invisible weight pressed down on me, heavier than grief, heavier than terror. In that place, hope simply didn't exist. The concept of light, of escape, of mercy was completely erased from reality. The realization struck me like a physical blow. I was exactly where I belonged. My life of mocking God, blaming him for my parents' death, chasing false idols, and rejecting every chance at redemption had led me here. I tried to remember prayers from my childhood, but the words slipped away like water through my fingers. The hymns my grandmother once sang were twisted into the screams that surrounded me. Even music, the one thing I'd always held sacred, was corrupted in this place. As I wandered deeper into that pit of despair, unsure if I was walking or being dragged by unseen forces, the screams grew louder.
Imagine making $453,000 in a single month as an affiliate marketer.
Wow. So it gets deeper and deeper. And so the purpose of this is to really wake us up and realize. So that's why, some people might take it and say, but I don't think, personally I believe. For anything else, if people choose not to believe, they choose not to believe, but I'm going to believe this. Because why I believe it? Because they're saying the similar things, the sulfur, the dreading, the different areas of hell, what them what them souls down there feeling, they smelling everything 10 times what they did when they was in the land of the living. So I believe this. I truly do. I mean, because it's not by chance or coincidence that each person giving their own testimony have experience in different phases of their life, whatever medical problems, or in the case where the one young lady got beat up pretty bad and put into a subconscious. This can happen. People don't believe it.
The room was silent except for the slow beeping of the hospital machine. A young man, barely 30 years old, lay on the bed with tubes in his arms. His chest rose and fell weakly. Doctors and nurses rushed around, their voices sharp and urgent. "His heart is dropping," one shouted. The man's eyes fluttered, and suddenly everything went black. At first, he thought he was sleeping. But then he realized he wasn't asleep. He was leaving his body. He looked down and saw himself lying on the hospital bed. His mouth was open, his skin pale, and the doctors were pressing on his chest, trying to bring him back. Fear gripped him like a cold hand. "What's happening to me? Am I dying?" he whispered, though no one could hear him. Suddenly, a mighty force pulled him backwards into a tunnel, deep, endless, and terrifying.
Another
The
story.
walls of the tunnel weren't like normal walls, they were alive. He could hear whispers, screams, and laughter that chilled his bones. It was as if thousands of voices were crying out at once. Some screamed in pain, others in regret. Shadows with twisted faces reached out for him, trying to drag him down. The deeper he went, the darker it became. No light, no peace, only fear. Then, out of the darkness, a faint glow appeared. He felt hope for a moment, thinking maybe this was the way to heaven. But as he drew closer, he realized it wasn't light, it was fire. A sea of fire stretched out before him, burning endlessly. It wasn't like the fire of a campfire or stove. This fire was alive. It screamed. It roared. It consumed everything, but never stopped burning. And then he heard them. The cries. The wails. The voices of people trapped in the fire. At first, he thought they were just ordinary souls, but as he drew closer, His eyes widened in shock. He recognized them. Famous faces. Artists he had listened to. Singers whose songs had filled the world. People who once had fame, riches, and millions of fans screaming their names. Now, they were screaming in agony. He saw Tupac, his face twisted with pain, tears streaming down his cheeks as he cried out words the young man could barely understand.
I'd love to give you a gift, and I'll talk about the books and the course and the way that I'll give you this gift in a second, but the gift...
Words the young man could barely understand. Not far from him was XXX Tentacion, his once bold eyes now full of sorrow, his voice shaking as he begged for mercy. Then he saw Juice WRLD, holding his head, weeping, repeating the same words over and over. I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back. The young man's heart pounded. No, no, this can't be real. These are legends. These are icons. Why are they here? But the screams only grew louder. The smell of burning flesh, the endless fire, and the sight of people he once admired being tortured tore his soul apart. He tried to cover his ears, but the cries pierced his very spirit. And then, one of them looked straight at him. It was Tupac. His eyes, burning with sorrow, locked onto the young man's soul. His lips trembled as he cried out, "Don't come here. Don't follow the path we chose." The young man's heart nearly stopped. His body trembled. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a story. It was real. He was standing at the gates of hell. And what he saw next would change his life forever. The young man's whole body shook as the fire roared louder. He wanted to run, but there was no place to run to. Everywhere was flames, screams, and shadows moving like hungry beasts. He stood frozen as the souls cried out, reaching up their hands. Some tried to grab him, but their hands melted in the fire, only to form again and melt once more. The pain never ended. Suddenly, a voice rose above the others. It was XXX Tentacion. His voice was broken, filled with pain, but still carried the weight of someone who once stood on great stages. He looked at the young man and cried, "I told people I was seeking truth. I told them I was searching for light, but I never truly gave my heart to God. I sang about pain, about life, about death, but I never surrendered to Jesus. Now look where I am. Don't do what I did." The young man's eyes filled with tears. He could hardly breathe. Before he could respond, Juice WRLD began to scream. His cries cut through the fire like a knife. He held his chest, as if the pain inside was greater than the fire around him. "I warned in my songs," Juice WRLD shouted. "I spoke of drugs, of pain, of demons haunting me. But I didn't stop. I thought I had more time. I thought I could escape, but death came too soon. The demons I sang about, they dragged me here. And now I can never leave." The young man's heart beat faster. He remembered the lyrics, the words millions sang along to, the words that sounded like entertainment, but here, in this place, they became chains of fire. Then Tupac's voice thundered again. His words were heavy, filled with deep regret. "I wanted justice. I wanted truth. I wanted change for my people. But I lived in anger, violence, and sin. I spoke about God, but I never walked with him. Fame blinded me. I thought I had everything, but I had nothing. Now, it's too late." The young man wept. Tears fell from his eyes, but they did not quench the heat. His soul ached as he listened to the confessions of men the world still adored. All around, other voices joined in, voices of stars, rappers, singers, actors. Some he recognized, some he didn't. All of them were crying the same words. Too late, too late, too late. The young man covered his ears, but it didn't matter. The cries came from within, piercing his soul. Then suddenly, one of the souls screamed directly at him. You still have a chance. Go back. Don't waste it. Tell them what you saw. The fire roared higher, the ground shook, and the young man felt something pulling him back, away from the flames. No. No. Not yet, another soul shouted. Don't forget us. Tell them that hell is real. The young man's body shook violently as the force pulled him through the tunnel once again. The screams faded, but the pain in his heart remained. Darkness surrounded him once more.
Jim hurts. Just
So basically the message is, you know, in the music, there's young men, like, because their music influenced the world. So they became whatever they dedicate themselves to. And I've heard celebrities say that they would get messages on what to put in their songs from demons. So the very demons that they got a message from, they was left with the torment. So you know how, and you hear a lot of celebrities say they get a song and they can't, they don't, all of a sudden they could be sitting there getting high, getting drunk. There was the very demons that were assigned to them when they lost their life, and now they're being tormented. This is the whole point of this video. Is, you know, we have to be careful what we take in our ears. You know, sometimes it sounds tempting, but it alternates your whole personality. And how many young people heard a song and they let the force take over their mental status, and they go out there moving on and harming other people. This was the point of this video. It's to wake people up that, you know, you can take it like you want. Some people are going to be offended behind these videos, but what did we learn, ladies and gentlemen? It was the same thing over and over again. It was tormented. The fires, the agony, the regret, the hideous creatures down there. Same, different story, same scenario. Different testimony. And I believe some of these people had their different experiences, however they have. You may not feel like it, but I do. Some people won't accept this video, these videos out here, but it's a warning. You don't know your tomorrows. So the message is, the reality could be right around your corner. You can lay down tonight or lay down in the morning. Might wake up like me and be down there if you're not living right. And hey, let me say this to you. I repent of my sins now, because I don't want to end up in that place. And we all gonna be struggling, but we know we all gotta work our way, even though whatever struggle that we have, but we don't give in to the struggle. We ask the Father for help, and I got my struggles just like you do. You know, we still struggling with. You know, just to say it's personal. Nothing really will harm myself or harm nobody, but still, every person got their own struggles. But the main thing is the repentance out of this video. So please give your life to Christ if you haven't, because you don't see how young that they were testing on Tupac and that other young man. It's not just because you're old, whatever. You don't have to be really ill. You can be basically healthy 1 minute and bam, you're gone. And you didn't get a chance to. So please, if anybody sees this video, repent. Give your life to Christ. Stop what you're doing if you live in that lifestyle, and let him lead you. And whatever you do, don't be like the young lady, even though we may get it out. And just as well as we all have to stay connected to the Father, because that could be any one of us. So please take care. Like and subscribe this video. Share it with other people. Shout out to the content creators, because this video not only can save your life, but it can save your eternal soul. Take care. Thank you for this message. Be blessed.